Here's a short summary of why you're here. I'm not going to belittle you and be redundant. I'm going to keep this super short. You've already heard this, but I want to remind you. This is going to be the summary of the. He has a developmental disorder. That means developmentally his social and emotional brain is underdeveloped relative to his logical brain. That means his social and emotional needs are low. You're the inverse. High in social intelligence, high in emotional intelligence, your social and emotional needs are high. Therein lies the problem. That's almost a recipe for disaster right there. I can't think of a worst case scenario because your marriage by default is about social and emotional stuff. That's the whole purpose of that. Is almost the definition of a soulmate or a lifelong partner, someone who is socially and emotionally connected. So it's like you signed up for this marriage and you got something that was almost the opposite of that at some level. You didn't sign up for that. Unfortunately, he didn't sign up for ASD either. I know he looks normal, walks normal, talks normal, functions normal in so many domains of life, including work. He is not normal. Okay. And the ladies go, well, how come he does so well in all other areas, but when it comes to me, it's just like it falls apart. But with you, there's a huge amount of social and emotional and aspects, and that's not his cup of tea. It's terrible to have to say that. We could almost, if we wanted to be exaggeratory, is he is so low in social and emotional needs, he would probably, if he had his iPad, iPhone, and computer, or whatever his special, he could live on an island and never see anybody and never talk to anybody about feelings. He would be perfectly happy. So, given that dilemma, and that's one hell of a dilemma, we want to find some way for you to, you have been in a good faith effort trying to get him to connect. Some point along the line, he disconnected and he's been gone for a long time. And your mission has always been to try to get him to, at some level, try to reestablish trust, if possible, try to reestablish a bond, try to get some emotional reciprocity. Every once in a while, have give and take in conversation and so on. But unfortunately, your method wasn't tailored to the ASD male brain, and so it backfired. And when I say backfire, I mean it yielded the opposite result of what you were shooting for. That's a hell of a note. It's like it wasn't even a neutral thing. It went way into the negative. So that's the purpose of this little speech today, is to try to come up with some ways for you to continue to pursue, unless you've just given up altogether at this point, which evidently you haven't given up altogether or you wouldn't be here. So you can continue to try to pursue and convince, but in a way that's going to be less, a message that's going to be less anxiety provoking for him. And so when there is an issue, I'm big on scripts because I want you guys to be able to, in the heat of the moment, I want you to have some idea what you're going to say and maybe even rehearse it ahead of time. So when there is, again, if you can't see this over in the notes, it'll be there. When there is a problem that you, in the past, when there was an issue that you want to discuss with him, I don't know how you went about it, but it didn't work much of the time. Two things, and some of you ladies are tired of hearing me say this. Wordage is very important. Timing is very important. The way you word your message is crucial, and your timing of the delivery is crucial. So when you are trying to get him to listen to you about something that's important to you, it would be good to follow something along the lines of these 4 steps. And you're talking to him now, and by the way, if you have hopefully made an appointment at you maybe have said, there's something I need your help with, and whenever you're not busy or it's convenient for you, let me know. I'd like to talk with you about something. So you do want to kind of give him a little bit of a heads up, because most things are not emergent and most things do not need to be discussed right now. And that's why I say timing is important. So when he says, okay, well, I'm not doing anything now, we can talk now, then you're going to use this script. Or if he says, well, I'm not going to be busy later this evening, we can talk. So here's the script. Some of you can't see it, so it may not make as much sense to you because you're going to have to hear me. But the first step is when, and you're going to fill in the blank without using the word you. I'm going to come up with a concrete example, so this will make sense to you. So when, blah, 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 and in that line, you're going to describe what happened without using the term you, or at least using it very minimally. The second step, it creates a problem for me because blah, 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 blah. And in that line, you're going to describe how his behavior affected you. You're taking ownership of the problem. In this script, every step here has huge purpose behind it. This is not going to come off to him as criticism or attacking nearly as much as what you have been doing. I'm not saying this is foolproof, but you're taking ownership of the problem. You're not using you much. So the step 2, it creates a problem for me because blah, blah, blah. You're going to describe how his behavior affected you. Step 3, I know that you blah, 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 blah. In here, you're going to state what you think his motive was. And this will all make sense to you when I plug in these blanks. And then there is a second portion of step 3. Here's step 3 and 3 continued for those of you who can see this. I know that you blah, 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 blah. And in that line, you're going to state what you believe his purpose or his motive was. Because you blah, 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 blah. And in there, you're going to attach a positive motive to his behavior. You're going to intentionally put a positive spin on his behavior. This is called positive reframing. Now, I've got some more positive reframes for you that you can use. And the final step is, but I'd rather we come up with a plan where we blah, 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 blah. And in there, you're going to put perhaps a new choice, hopefully a new choice that will have a positive outcome for the both of you. Now, I want one of you to give me a recent example of where you were trying to convey a concern to him that was important to you, and it just didn't get out of the box. And I'm going to take your example and I'm going to plug it into this thing. Somebody give me an example, if you would, of a recent thing where you tried to have a conversation and the problem not only did not get resolved, it probably ended in a fight. No examples?
I have one. I mean, it goes with my question too.
Okay, go for it.
So we've had some major crises and abuse and some other things. And I've been with a therapist. We're also with a marriage counselor, and I got counseling the night before, and I'm basically asking for some separation and to heal our marriage, not to break up, but have
time out.
All the things, and a daughter that is now having some suicidal issues. So he took total offense, even though he knew that was where we were kind of headed. And
now, let me make sure I understand, Brett. So you're talking about a temporary timeout.
I am.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not talking a legal separation.
No. I'm talking a temporary timeout.
Okay.
There's been some major things that have happened. And
okay.
Yeah, so I got counseling the night before, and my therapist was like, well, don't, ask him at nighttime, like with the kids, So it was Saturday morning, and I just said, we had already had the conversation. We had already spent 2 weeks apart. I was in Mexico. Then he joined me. We came home. I told him it'd probably be tough for me to be with him at home. Mm-hmm. And he had said, whatever you think we need to do, if I need to leave or you need to leave, like whatever we need to do to figure this out. So when I did sit down and, I said, I think we need to spend some time apart. And he got really reactive, and he took it as a dig, and he verbalized it though. He's like, I'm like really offended. I need a minute. I need to like understand this. And
all right. Well, I mean, that was good that he did that, because a lot of guys would not go that. They wouldn't have that kind of insight.
Yeah. And so I said that, and then he said, can we just try to get through the weekend? I'll stay in the guest room. We'll do the tree, the lights, and I'll give you your space. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. It's every 30 minutes he's coming in, and he is very much a person that checks out when he's feeling emotional. Or like he'll just sit on the couch and do nothing. And that makes me react. Like when I'm doing all the dishes and I'm taking care of the kids and he's sitting on his ass watching football, and so I said, I'm kind of reacting. I'm trying not to, but this is why I need space so that we can work on us. And it ended up turning out where I heard me apologize to him in the other room because he got reactive at me, and he's like, you're unrealistic, all these things. And she yelled at him, and she's like, she yelled at me. She's like, stop apologizing for stupid shit, Mom. Like, it's bullshit. And he got reactive. Long story short, he ended up leaving. He took off to Phoenix, didn't tell me for 24 hours.
Okay. Before we get too far down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We have two problems, though. We have, and I don't know which one we want to plug in. I can plug both of them in. So you need some time out for multiple reasons, and we have a secondary thing, which is one of the reasons, and that was the dishes thing.
No.
I'll
The
just do
real
both.
reason is this.
I'll just do both of them because the main purpose of this moment here, we will get to some Q&A here in a little bit where you guys can hit me with whatever you want, special
Mark, real
problems.
quick though, before you go into that, the secondary reason for dishes I just kind of brought up in the moment, but we had a major abuse and he threw me and I've had a black eye for like 10 days.
Okay.
And so that would be the like real underlying reason before that. So that's kind of, that would be my reason that I'm trying to convey to him in a positive way.
I get you. So we'll use that example there because that was kind of a nuclear example. So describe in less than 5 seconds how he threw you.
He was trying to go interrupt my daughter. Her boyfriend had just arrived and they'd been waiting like 20 days and he had been drinking all hot-headed. And I said, just hold up, just wait a minute. And he didn't want to hear what I had to say. And he threw me and our two friends watched. So it was a big push.
I'm going to use this example here because I want you ladies, I feel a little bad leaving, Britt and coming over to this strategy because that needs a lot more attention than this strategy. But I want you ladies to begin the business of thinking this way because the hope here is that whatever you were doing, you will stop doing it because it's getting you nowhere. And it's raising his anxiety, which furthers the distance. You really have to knock it off. What you've been doing. Your delivery sucks. I'm going to use that example here. And this is best done when he's calm. Remember, I said you're going to make an appointment and you're even going to use the word each is important. Timing is important. I need your help with something. That's your phrase. Whenever you're free, calm, not busy, I'd like to discuss this with you. As opposed to, and I'm not saying you necessarily did this, Brett, as opposed to, hey, stop what you're doing. We got to talk about this. That would be the better to do nothing than to do that one because those are fighting words right there for him. Anxiety already up. He's already in defense mode. Game over. And you're going to lose again. When I was, pay attention here, I'm not going to use the term you, I'm using step number 1 of this thing. When I was physically abused, it creates a problem for me because now I feel very unsafe in this relationship. That was step 2. Step 3, I know that you were drinking and trying to, I'm not sure exactly what the motive was he was trying to accomplish, Brett, but I'm sure he was doing that for some reason that he thought was plausible.
Sure.
Because you, and here you're going to attach, I wish I'd had more information because I'm not really doing a great job of plugging that in there with, because, well, I want to back up because this is important. Don't give me a big long answer, Brett.
Okay.
What was his purpose of, was he trying to get you out of the conversation, get you out of the way? Was he trying to, what was going on? What was his purpose?
I honestly think he has like so much rage at me that it just came out in that moment.
Okay.
I was trying to, stop him from, I don't know if he was trying to be like macho or like he gets this like, I gotta be the dad and like.
Okay.
I mean, from the witnesses, it was pretty not, everyone was like super shocked and we've only had 2 physical instances in 18 years.
Hold it. I know that comes back to number 3. Now, I'm really having a hard time plugging this in with the situation because this is a multifactorial problem here.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm going to have to come up with a second example, but I'm going to finish this one out. I know that I think this one would fit, Brett, given the situation. I know that you don't make the best choices and when you've been drinking and acts impulsively sometimes when you've been drinking, there's no way that I can attach a positive reframe to this. So we're going to bypass 3 continued on this thing. But I'd rather come up with a plan where we, given the gravity of this situation, and given what you just told me a little bit ago, Brett, I'd rather come up with a plan where if you're going to drink, I'm nowhere around. That's the best I can do with that one, given this situation. But now let me go back to the dishwashing thing, because I want the ladies to get it. When I am spending what is supposed to be my free time doing chores, and I'm not getting any help, it creates a problem for me because I kind of feel like I'm the one doing most of the work. I know that you are stressed out from work and want to relax because you have a stressful job and you need some downtime too. There was the positive reframe, by the way. But I'd rather we come up with a plan where we decide who's going to do what chore when. So I know that that sounds great in theory. You guys can tweak that and make it fit better. I also want to, and we will come back to you, Brett, and get deeper into that if we need to. So I feel like I kind of cut you off. But I want to make this point here before we get into some other question Q&A stuff. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. With respect to this business of wordage is important and timing is important. By the way, here's some positive reframes. I am going to use one more example of this before we move on. Here are some examples of positive reframes. And the reason I feel compelled to explain each of these steps. And I hope that you can see these, otherwise it's not going to make much sense to you. When blah, 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 it creates a problem for me because blah, blah, blah. I know that you blah, blah, blah because you blah, 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 but I'd rather come up with a plan where we blah, blah, blah. So I feel like I need to explain why that. When, and there you're going to describe what happened to you, they are mind blind and they don't really know what you might be thinking, what you might be feeling, how you might be hurt, what they're doing wrong, what they're saying wrong, what they're not doing that they should be doing. They're fairly clueless. They're not purposely trying to be an asshole. They're just mind blind and emotions blind, and they're not going to put 2 and 2 together with your body language and your and how you're feeling and all that. You have to give them some kind of a clue as to how their behavior is impacting you. And you're going to say it creates a problem for me because, and in step number 2, you're taking ownership of the problem rather than blaming him for it. And in step number 3, you're going to put in a positive reframe, and this is purely to put a positive spin on his behavior so he doesn't feel criticized. That's why your conversations in the past have backfired, because your method downloaded in his head as full-blown criticism. So this makes a really good attempt at avoiding that devil. You not only didn't criticize him, you actually put a positive spin on his behavior. And then in the 4th step, you're coming up with a plan where it's a we thing rather than you need to change and you need to stop doing this and you should do that and the you should and whatnot. It's a we thing. It's trying to get him to be a team player. And as a side note, I put here in the notes some examples of positive reframes. I'm going to come up with one more example. I think we need 3 for this to hit home. I'm going to use the example, let's say that he has a busy day at work. He comes home, you're in the kitchen doing something, and he walks right past you without saying hi and goes to the computer. And you haven't seen him all day, and he just bypasses you, doesn't even acknowledge your presence, and goes from the front door straight to his computer room. So you say, I need your help with something whenever you have time or when you're calm or whatever. So you've made an appointment and you've used that wordage. So here's the appointment. When and sometimes you have to use the term you. I know you can't just never use it. Just 1 second here. Okay. Had to mute some mics. When I'm in the kitchen and I'm just bypassed as if I don't exist, it creates a problem for me because I feel neglected and lonely. I know that you have busy days at work, and and I know that you want to come home and just de-stress because your work is involves being along with coworkers that you're not really particularly fond of. But I'd rather we come up with a plan where when you come home, you at least acknowledge that I'm there. I don't necessarily have to have an hour-long conversation. But if you could just stop and say hi or let me give you a hug or something like that. So that probably wasn't the best case example anyway. Um, Here's some other scripts. I'm big on scripts. Again, the purpose here is for you to be able to talk to him without him downloading it as criticism. And Britt's description of what happened with him was a perfect example where he downloaded something as he was being slighted and criticized, or however he framed it. When you're asking for help, here's the line: I need your help. Can you explain to me why it's not important to you that you blah 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 blah? And then there you're going to fill in the line. For example, spend more. Why it's not important to you that you spend more time with me. Here's another example: following through with kindness and firmness. I can see you're stressed about, and in that blank you're going to put the anxiety-provoking issue. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I'm available to help with this issue if you want me. Here's another example of information versus orders. I notice you spend a lot of time, for example, on the computer during the time you have set aside for us to be together. So in here, you're not, instead of saying, I don't understand why you come home and you just go straight to the computer and pretend, it's like I don't even exist. That's an attack in his mind. So this would be a better script to use. Joint problem solving is another one. What is your picture of what is going on regarding, and in that blank, you're going to put the recent disagreement. Would you be willing to hear my concerns? Could we brainstorm together on some possible solutions? Here's the business of letting go of their issues without abandoning them. This is something that Britt might be able to fit in somewhere. I hope that you will, and in this blank we'll use the example of work on improving how we communicate, but I am not sure it is important to you. I'm happy to talk about your thoughts or plans about this issue anytime you like. Here's one for listening without fixing. I would like to hear what this means for you. Here's one about love and encourage, to express love and encouragement. I love you just the way you are and expect you to choose what is right for you. So I'm not going to read through all of those. You don't need me to do that. But my point is, and I'm going to be done with my point. I spent a half an hour making this point, and here is the summary. My point is this: if you will pay more attention to the timing of your good message, you had a good message, but it got lost. Or it got downloaded as criticism and attack, and then you lost it. You did some version of shutdown or meltdown. So my point, long way around the bush to get to this point, is be cautious with your timing and your wordage. And I've given you some scripts to use, and this is just barely scratching the surface. But at least it gets you thinking along those lines. And I'm willing to plug in more examples that specifically apply to something that's going on with any of you ladies today. So having said that, I want to spend the next 30 minutes addressing anything that you want to bring up. We can totally shift gears if you want to.
Mark, you've talked about the origins of low self-esteem in their childhood and so on. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, because of the mind blindness, there seems to be utter chaos. Like last night, my husband made a beautiful fish dinner, but it's like he was begging for appreciation. Mm-hmm. And he said over and over and over again, "Did you like it? Did you like it? Did you like it? Did you like it?" And I was thinking, yes, I really liked it, but you didn't tell me what you were doing. And so I was really unprepared. And then also last night, we went for a walk with our kids to see Christmas lights, and it was very chaotic as usual. Like, he wouldn't give any space for me to walk on the sidewalk. And
Okay, before you launch on to problem number 2,
yep,
and I'm not chastising you, I had a reason to interrupt Brett, and I have a reason to interrupt you. Not that either one of you have done anything wrong. I want you to talk to me, but I'm also a big believer in teachable moments and modeling for you in the moment what my message is to you. Britt did nothing wrong with me, but I can tell by the way she was data dumping that she does that with him, and that is a huge problem. And you, Alexandria, did nothing wrong. You need to talk to me this way. But I'm also guessing, based on, before you even asked me to answer question 1, you launched on to question 2. I'm also surmising that you do the same thing with him. And now you bring in problems 1, 2, 3, and 4. He don't even know what were we talking about 15 minutes ago. Again, you ladies did nothing wrong. I want these to be teachable moments. You have an intimacy deficit. All of you all have been emotionally deprived and disconnected for too long, and your intimacy needs have not been met, and you have an intimacy deficit. You know what the ASD male brain counterpart to that is? And this is why I'm glad you brought this up, Alexandria. He has an appreciation deficit. His not getting any appreciation from you, and I understand why. I'm not faulting you. I wouldn't be very appreciative either. But your intimacy deficit is the same for him, except it's an appreciation deficit. So he was, and I'm not faulting you, Alexandra. It's easy for me to do Monday morning quarterbacking here. He starved for appreciation from you, and he asked several times, and your response was lukewarm. You can't make that mistake. That was a golden opportunity to capitalize on feeding his appreciation deficit. And he's done the same thing to you. You were starved for intimacy needs, and he had a golden opportunity to fill that need, but he wasn't paying attention. So, having said that, Alexandria, go on to the next problem, please.
well, I've been trying to detach this week, like you recommended last week. And so I've been more trying to feel things in my body. And I feel very scared by the whole legal world in terms of getting a divorce. So last night he came to my bedside and his eyes were pleading. And he said, we're never going to get divorced, are we? And I was thinking, I hope so. I mean, I just was like, I can't figure out how to do it, but boy, like, I don't want this to go on forever and ever.
Yeah, you just about fell
And
for
he
something.
said, he said, well, you just want me to make a ton of money, don't you? And I was thinking, no, it's the fact that you are very controlling with money. You don't share any, you don't consider our needs. You know, I didn't say that, but I was like, he doesn't have a clue.
Okay, so let me interrupt you if I can. I think what you need to do is some kind of an analysis about him, because I get the impression, you correct me if I'm wrong, Alexandria. In fact, any of the other ladies, feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong, because I'm only one brain viewing this thing. And I'm not necessarily saying that he is doing this, Alexandria, but it sure smells like it. Where he is blindly, and I use that word deliberately, he is blindingly causing you hell. But every once in a while, you get a glimpse of the soft side of him, don't you? Yeah. That's about similar to the pit bull that bites you 9 times, but the 10th time you thought he was going to bite you, he comes up and wags his tail and licks you and wants some pets. That's scary. So if you want to do a little bit of analysis, the other ladies in here, you may want to do this too. It takes some time, but what this is about is for you to do some soul searching to see if you really do need to move on. I'm using the business of, as an example, Alexandria, you could plug anything in here if you can see this scorecard. I'm using the example of broken promises, but you could plug other things in here. How many times has he, you're going to do a analysis, you're going to write this stuff down. How many times has he failed to follow through on the promise? Then you're going to run a statistical analysis, and I'll show you how to do this. And then you're going to draw a conclusion based on the data. And that data is, do I need to move on, or am I going to keep playing this game? Or can we fix it? Those are the 3 options. Can I get to the point where this relationship is tolerable and maybe even preferable? Or am I going to continue to fight the good fight? Or do I need to move on? So this is a fabricated example, and I made the math easy based on this scenario where you're doing an analysis on broken promises. So here's a fabricated example. In a 1-month period, how many times has he promised to call me back? I'm just using this as an example. You can plug anything in here where he's at work and or maybe we could say instead of a phone call, it could be a text. Let's say he's at work and he says, yeah, I'll text you on my break, or I'll call you on my lunch break. We'll just use this as an example. So in a 1-month period, how many times has he promised to call me back or text me from work? Or maybe he's deployed, or I don't know, make up your scenario. Math is easy. We'll say 100 times this month he failed to do that. How many times has he failed to call me back during that time frame? 70 times. So he's promised to call me back in a 1-month period 100 times. But he failed to call me back 70 times. So here's the statistical analysis. That means he called me back about 30% of the time. So then you're going to draw a conclusion based on the data. That means for every 3 phone calls I make, he will return 1 of them. So in this way, you're kind of able to determine if your efforts are largely wasted. And again, I am just plugging this particular example into the equation here. If you want me to plug something else in that's specific to you, if you're unclear about this, I will be glad to do so. So this scoring here is not necessarily meant to determine whether or not you should leave the relationship, although it certainly can be used for that. But you definitely want to use it to predict future outcomes, which is important because it may reduce your anxiety if you know approximately what to expect and what not to expect from him. So to use our previous example here, let's say that you try to make contact with him via phone call. And now you know, instead of getting upset every time he doesn't text you or call you, now you know what the stats are. You can predict that he will only return that call about every 3rd time. So in this way, at least you know what to expect. This keeps you from wondering what's wrong because you already know the odds of him returning a call. This is his pattern. So you're trying to figure out what his pattern is so you're not in a constant state of being frustrated, which has driven you crazy. It has driven you crazy. I'm not using that word lightly either. Verbal abuse or belittling ? Britt, what did you mean by that?
So if I'm doing your data analysis and looking at this formula,
okay,
that's what I'm asking.
Great.
Like that would be what I'd plug in.
Great question. Has he promised to not do that?
Yes.
What does he say?
He tends to just go down every insult when he's upset or feels attacked or, even asked to do a small task nicely. So he's promised, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say the word, like I've lied my boundaries. Like I will not be tolerated being called a bitch or being told to shut up or being belittled in front of my children. And he promises and he says,
Okay. So this may not fit perfectly, but at least you'll understand what you can do with this and you'll do a better job of it than I will. And it does take some time and it takes some logging things in. I'm going to make the math easy. And it's not going to be this easy. You don't have to do a 1-month period. All of this is just a template. You may want to I would say in this case, Brett, you maybe want to do a 1 week period. How many times has he promised not to be abusive? 7 times. How many times has he failed to meet that promise? 6 times. So now you're going to, I'm not good with math. I don't know. Some of you ladies would know 6 out of 7 is some kind of a percentage. I don't know. It's what, 90%? Something like that. I don't know. So in this case, in this example, he's only going to follow through with the promise 1 every 7 times. So what are you going to do with that data? And I don't know. That's a rhetorical question. You could point it out to him. You know, if you really want to play hardball, and in this case, I say play hardball. You know what? I did a little analysis last week. What's your husband's name?
Eric.
Eric, I did a little analysis last week that you weren't aware of. And I have found out, and you know, the ASD brain love figures and facts and stats. I found out that based on this little analysis that for every 7 promises you make to not be abusive, you only follow through with 1. What do you think a sane wife would do in that circumstance?
Okay.
Pretty bad odds, isn't it, Eric? You get a big fat F- in the promise department. It makes my life highly unpredictable, and I feel like I'm in the danger zone 90% of the time.
Okay.
What if the problems are due to poor executive function doesn't mean to not follow through? Can you clarify that, Heidi?
I was just talking about the calling back on the telephone example. I mean, it's not really, and I understood later what you said.
I get you.
That my expectations, that's not really a damaging example, but like, so that I have accurate expectations and don't get
Yeah.
all
So,
upset
well,
about it.
there's different reasons for breaking a promise. We're not necessarily accusing him of breaking a promise for a particular reason. Like, for
Mhm.
example, okay, well, I found out that out of every 10 times we were supposed to communicate, we only communicated 3 of those 10 times. And therefore, you don't give a shit about talking to me. No, well, that's a judgment call. We don't want to use that last piece. That last piece could clearly be, yeah, he forgot. How could he forget that many times? Believe me, he can forget that many times. So this is not an assessment for his motive.
Okay.
This is purely for your sanity, so that you will, instead of frustrating yourself, you'll be able to know what his pattern is. I only expect him to call me 3 times out of 10 because he forgets. So when you know, when I don't get a phone call 60% of the time, I'm just going to know that's his pattern.
But then you think you're lowering your expectations, but obviously we have to. I mean, we have to kind of live in reality.
I'm not necessarily saying be okay with that and settle for that. I am saying, but identify where it is so that you won't be disappointed every time.
Okay.
In other words, you won't keep setting yourself up for disappointment.
Okay.
You'll know ahead of time he's not going to follow through with this. Now you can certainly have a conversation with him about follow through. Yeah, but that's a whole other can of worms. Would you help do a scorecard for belittling comments?
Which you already did.
Oh, we already did? Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, we were in a conversation and I asked, he switched and that's me threatening him. Michelle, can just turn on your mic and elaborate for me if you would, please.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
So we had a conversation on Sunday evening, and I'd come across some information that I hadn't shared with him at that point, and asked him a question about a particular activity that has caused problems in the past, and he's withheld it. So every few months, I would ask him, have you invested any money in that? And he said no, and then followed on with justifying that he had indirectly, but it was for somebody else. And so I made a statement. I hope that what has happened in the past is not happening again, because I don't think I want to deal with that. And then he said, are you threatening me? And I said, no, it's a concern. And then it followed with, what I do is none of your business. And we'd had a perfectly pleasant time before that. It just spiraled from there. So, and resulting in a huge meltdown, some really awful name calling and verbal abuse in front of our children, whether they're young adults. And I asked him to calm down. I said, you know, he normally leaves on a Sunday anyway. I said, maybe you should rather go. And anyway, more abuse came from there. He just was completely out of control, and it was really very upsetting and quite ugly. So my daughter had contacted him to say, you know, you shouldn't be speaking to mummy like that. Can you please just apologize? You've upset her. And my son was 18. He was also usually traumatized. And his response to her was, don't contact me again. I won't be coming back. And that's pretty much his mindset. And this is now 48 hours later, and he's...
Okay, so
what am I dealing with?
What is the question, though? And the reason that I'm doing this, I'm kind of pulling the same stunt on you that I did with Andrea. I need to train you ladies to get clarity in something. I want to repeat that. I want you ladies to practice getting clarity on the situation so that you can summarize. Not that you need to do it for me. You're supposed to be talking to me this way. But that's a little scattered all over the map. There was 4 or 5 things in there that would take 4 or 5 different answers. Anything wrong, Michelle? But I want you to practice condensing that thing down. What are you trying to solve?
Do you want me to respond?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the big picture here? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I wanted him to be honest with me about spending money on buying cars, which I had evidence that he did, but I wanted it to come from him.
Okay. So do you want to plug in this scenario in the communication strategy that we talked about earlier? Do you want to plug it into the scorecard business? Do you want to not even worry about those 2 things and I just answer it apart from that?
Yes, maybe the latter, because he's of the opinion we are finished. I think that he just went into defensive mode. So right now there is no reasoning with him.
Okay. Well, we won't even worry about what we talked about. I'll just answer it directly.
Yeah.
That is, don't trust a goddamn thing that comes out of his mouth right now.
Okay. Insofar as I'm done with all of this.
Insofar as everything that comes out of his mouth right now.
Okay.
He's out of his mind.
Yeah.
Literally. You can't trust a thing that he says.
Even 48 hours later?
Even 2 weeks later.
Oh, right.
If it went more than 2 weeks, I would have a different response for you.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't leave you with much. I know that's just so, that's easy for Mark to say, just don't believe him. But you can't, he's not in his right mind right now.
Yeah.
And anything that he is saying is just going to scare you for no good reason, because he doesn't mean 90% of the shit that's coming out of his mouth right now.
Yeah, and I think definitely the operative word is the latter, because of my anger is the hurt that he's caused my children. Mm-hmm. And I had asked him to at least put that right and apologize to them. I don't care about me, but they are young adults. The 18 and 19. I don't want this to be the message.
Give him permission to have his temper tantrum. Don't require him to do. Less is better for you right now. The less you can do, the better it is. Okay. He's not going to be open to apologies. He's not. He's having his temper tantrum. He's already storming. That storm's just going to have to burn itself out. And then when it's burned itself out and he loses his momentary insanity, then you can have these conversations with him. In the meantime, just give him permission to have his little temper tantrum and understand that most of the stuff that he is saying, he really doesn't mean when he's in his correct state of mind.
Yeah. My kids want nothing to do with him, which makes it difficult. But we don't care. Fair enough.
We don't care. And I'm being careful how I say this, because I don't want you to think you're doing anything wrong with me. We don't care about anything other than letting him have his little temper tantrum and recognizing that anything he says right now, I can't trust it.
Okay, I hear you. Okay.
That's it. Don't complicate it.
Okay.
Just for now. I'm not saying, oh, it's just that simple. But it needs to be that simple just for now. Just for now.
Okay, got it. Yep.
And keep me posted.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Yes. Katrina, I'm sorry that you've been waiting a long time, man.
Oh, no worries. No, it's just one of those things. When you were talking about the appreciation deficit, it really made me start really thinking about, like, for those of us whose husbands no longer have like their careers right now or are working, I'm wondering if this really does make their appreciation deficit worse. And I just, because it really started to make a whole lot of sense with the issues we've had, I was like, there it is.
So he's lost his job?
He has been unemployed since about 2 years.
Does he want to be employed?
Well, I mean, we had talked, he helps with my business, but it was one of those things. Now we have a pandemic and 4 kids. So it's kind of been off the table.
And then does he actually want to work, though?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Is it important to you that he does work?
I'm starting to wonder if it's kind of an important thing for him.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking that is some guys, their work is their special interest.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to lose their job is synonymous with cutting their balls off.
Yeah, it was an awful hit. It was a really awful hit. And
but
he
there's
was very good.
there's others that their special interest is not work.
Yeah.
And their passion does not lie with their work. And in that case, that wouldn't affect their appreciation deficit at all.
No, I think it really did impact him very badly. And I was trying to give him room to,
We'll throw him in the category that I was thinking he was in, and that is his work is his identity. Yeah. And so when he lost his work, he lost a piece of himself.
Right. Yeah. That would make a lot of sense. So.
What does he do?
Well, he worked in the commercial analytics space. Mm-hmm. So he was a field rep for a number of years. He was an expert at inspecting buildings. He was the best in the entire field. And then he moved into the sales area and knocked things out of the ballpark there for many years. But then he had a boss and it was a political hit job. They just wanted to get rid of him because I honestly think he was becoming aware of some really shady stuff that was going on and was calling it out. So I think he was basically thrown under the bus for being a truth teller. So I have no fault. I totally see him as a victim in that situation, and I lawyered him up, and I got more settlement out of the company than they were going to offer originally. But I'm worried about him. Like, this is making me reframe the whole situation in a completely different light.
Well, we'll assume that he was one of these individuals that his work was his special interest and was an extension of him. Right. And so in that case, I mean, he probably had low self-esteem anyway. Yeah. And what little bit of self-esteem he got from his work. Right. And so now his major source of self-esteem builder is gone.
Yeah.
Which would make it really super important for you to point out in those areas where you can, throw out a little bit of acknowledgement and praise for things he might be doing right. Right. It's not going to fill in the gap much. Right. Certainly better than nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So my partner also doesn't work. His self-esteem comes from his hobbies, so to that extent it's fine. But he's become worse and worse in the last 6 years because I feel there isn't that much correction with that work. But I think on this topic is that with Corona, my partner is a very social person and he loves people, especially women, enjoying conversations with him because he's a great conversationalist. Mm-hmm. But that's gone thanks to Corona, and that has just made this, I guess, appreciation deficit so much worse. And I'm beginning to realize that is my issue with Corona. It's the appreciation deficit has gotten so big, and I don't have the equipment to deal with it. But I'm getting there. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, this Corona thing is, I mean, I'm not a soothsayer, but when we get the vaccine here shortly, I'm kind of risky saying this because it sounds like I'm being overly optimistic, but the vaccines are coming, and that's going to be a game changer. We'll just leave it at that. In fact, I read in the news yesterday somebody, I think he's 90 years old or something in the UK, I forget exactly where, was the first one to get the vaccine.
Yeah, that's right, Mark, 97 actually.
Mm-hmm. So she's the guinea pig. So that's not much consolation now, Michelle. But by all indications, we're going to have a vaccine soon, and that's going to be a big game changer. And plus, Biden is going to basically shut down the country, which is going to piss a lot of people off in the short term, but there again, will be less spreading. Anyway, I kind of deviated from that. Anybody else have an issue you want to talk about?
I just wanted to make an observation from something you said a couple weeks ago, and it was you were talking about setting them up to have success, and your example you gave was like losing the ring under the bed so he can find it because he happens to be a really good thing finder, and it seems to go along with your script here in that finding a positive motive. And I know my husband and I recently started counseling, and it didn't start the way that I thought it was going to start, but I was patient. But what I found was the therapist has spent some time kind of identifying those positives and letting us together experience some successes in our relationship that we haven't had in a very long time. And I have been amazed at the power of just these little things. So we are going to get to those big, heavier things. But I know for me personally, mentally, I'm just in such a better headspace. And I think he doesn't feel as under attack because all the things you're saying is I can data, purge all my reasoning and rationale, and I know I scare him. I know I do. And so just the ring, and then attributing, because I'm looking at your notes that you shared here, attributing that positive, I just found those 2 tips just so helpful in just reframing, because then we have more fuel to address those things that are critical.
And that's a great point, Gloria, and I feel compelled to drive it home a little further. We have him with low self-esteem. We have him that in a position where he's super compromised at understanding how you operate and how you think. And I could come up with probably another 4 or 5 things. It puts him, and I'm not trying to feel sorry for him, whoever he is, but speaking general here, he has so many things against him that he gets to the point where cooperating is more painful than isolating. And so when you put a well-placed piece of acknowledgement in place, or some praise, or just a little word of appreciation or encouragement, it's huge, ladies. It's huge because he doesn't feel so good about himself. And when you come out of the blue and hit him with some appreciation, it's like a pleasant smack upside the forehead. And here's why you want to do that, is because that's positively reinforcing for him. What does that mean? That means he's going to be more likely to want to be a team player if he knows that his co-teammate actually appreciates him at some level. It's a little sneaky thing you can do, reverse psychology, to make him a little more inclined to want to connect.
It's sneaky, but I also feel, but in the process of doing it, it's sneaky right back at myself because I feel better about him, because I've shifted some focus there. So I have more bandwidth to do what we need to do. I don't feel like I have to do this because I just can't take this anymore. I feel more energized. Like I can do this because I've got the, I have enough in the tank to do this. Right.
So if some ladies go, well, geez, if I wait for him to do something right and then show some appreciation for it, I'll be waiting a long time. And so this is when you have to, Gloria alluded to this is when you have to set him up for success that wouldn't happen otherwise. We were using the example of Barbara, where she said what was one thing that Saul is good at? Well, he finds stuff that I lose. Okay, well, there's your inroad then. Set him up for success. We use the example where she intentionally but accidentally loses a ring under the bed. Honey, I lost the ring. Where'd you find it? Where was it last? Oh, I had it on the bed. So that's a little trick. And in an ideal world, he would think, oh, she had it on the bed. Maybe it's under the bed. He finds it. Hey, I found your ring. Yay, honey. Oh, you're such a good investigator when I lose my rings and stuff. It is a total con job. It's a total line of bullshit sometimes. But it doesn't have to sound like bullshit. You can make it sound genuine. And there are times when he's going to be doing something right. If you're having a hard time finding him doing anything right, then try to set him up for success somehow or another. But those cases when he does something right, Or maybe it was something that he usually does that's annoying and he didn't do it this time. There's your golden opportunity. Hey, I noticed you didn't throw your shoes, your dirty shoes right there in the front door where people have to trip over them. I appreciate that. So here's another angle for you, and then I'll get off of this topic. I'm sure there's something that he does that you appreciate. There's something that he does that you appreciate. So you can, out of the clear blue, honey, I was just thinking, you're really good at such and such. And I was just, that's one thing I really like about you. And he's going to go, what? Like, where did that come from? Why are you saying that? Oh, I just can't. It just popped in my head. I know that's one thing I was thinking about that earlier today for some reason. And I just noticed you're really good about that. And I never tell you that I appreciate that. And I just feel like I need to tell you, I really do appreciate that. So he's going to be really confused at why you're doing that. He might even think, is she up to something? Yeah, you're up to something. This is your dirty little secret. I'm up to giving your appreciation fix so that maybe I can get some of my intimacy fixes. But you can leave that part out.
This is also how middle managers in big corporations are coached to work with people in their teams.
Would make sense, yeah.